Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. My name is Huzaifa Shabazz, and I serve as the senior researcher and advocate at the Council on American Islamic Relations. I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of CAIR on Air. Today's topic is uniting against global Islamophobia. As many of you know, anti-Muslim violence and rhetoric is on the rise in India. From calls to genocide, attacks on mosques, hate crimes against Muslims and other religious minorities, the BJP government and ruling party in India has done nothing to hold folks accountable and has given Hindu nationalists a free pass to commit violence. Just recently, an international backlash has been growing against India's BJP government after the party's national spokeswoman Nupur Sharma and Delhi media operation head Naveen Kumar Jindal made disparaging remarks about the Prophet Muhammad. To help us unpack all of this, I am joined by two of our amazing guests. First, we have Ajit Sahi. He's the Director of Advocacy at the Indian American Muslim Council. And we also have with us Hena Zuberi, who serves as the Director of Justice for All and Editor-in-Chief of MuslimMatters.org. Ajit and Hena, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Ajit, I'm going to start with you. I think we just dive right in. Can you provide the audience some background on the incident that happened involving the BJP officials, the remarks that were made, and who are these ranking officials, and do they have a history of making such comments?
There's nothing spectacular about what happened. This is par for the course. This is daily work for the BJP RSS in India. Excuse me.
Yeah.
The Indian Hindu extremist network has been saying horrible things about Islam, about Muslims, about the Quran, about the Prophet for a very long time. And there has been no stopping them because India's courts, India's police, India's administrations, India's prosecutions, India's news media, they have all now become completely Islamophobic. That is what is happening in India now. So this incident, it tipped over a bit because in this incident, in this speech specifically, the one spokesperson who was on television, she made disparaging remarks about the Prophet. Now that, of course, went viral and there was a lot of people who objected to it. And of course, as we know by now, it has now become an international issue. But this is their daily work. This is what they do day in, day out. In fact, these are just spoken words. They do much worse. They attack Muslims, they kill Muslims, they arrest Muslims, they humiliate Muslims, they attack mosques, they vandalize mosques, they vandalize the Holy Quran. This is something that has been happening ever since Modi became Prime Minister in 2014, 8 years ago. This is exactly what has been happening. So it's about time that the international community, especially the global Muslim community, woke up and understood what is being done in India to the Muslim community.
And Ajay, can you talk about the initial response from the Indian public, Muslims in particular, if there was a response there? And can you also maybe cover the response of the BJP, and if you think that was sufficient? And if not,
the BJP gave no response. So the Indian public is now unfortunately wholly divided. The Hindus that I know, except for a very tiny minority of secular Hindus who believe in pluralism, who believe in religious tolerance and respect, they, of course, were aghast. But of course, this is nothing new, as I said. So nothing surprises people anymore in India. So they, of course, condemned it. But the majority of Hindus, the bulk of Hindus, and of course, I have not done a survey, but I'm basing my comment on what I have seen on Facebook, on Twitter. A majority of Hindus supported the official spokesperson of the BJP, and they said there's nothing wrong in what they have said, and they're still defending them. As for the Muslims, I mean, the Muslims really are a very, very harassed lot in America. They are suffering unimaginable troubles and unimaginable problems in India. They are barely able to get through every single day with their lives. The activists are fighting students, Muslim organizations, they're barely fighting to stay afloat. So yes, they objected to it. There was a response to it, but really the bulk of the response has come from the international. It's only when the global Muslim community, especially the Muslim countries, started waking up and started making a noise about it,
Yeah.
that the BJP suspended the two officials that it's talking about. One is Nupur Sharma and the other is Naveen Jindal. Now that, of course, is completely insufficient, because and this is where the behavior of the Indian government is wholly suspect. In response to the questions raised by the by the Muslim countries of the world, the Indian government had said, well, the two officials have been appropriately acted against. That's nonsense. That is not true. They have merely been sacked from the BJP, which means nothing. The BJP does this drama always. It sacks people. Before long, you will find them back in the party, getting a lot better positions. What the Indian state needs to do, and I read the day before yesterday, or maybe yesterday, a police complaint has been filed against this lady, Nupur Sharma, but she needs to be arrested. There is a very clear law in India, Section 295A of the Indian Penal Code, under which the anybody who is destroying, who is spreading religious hatred can be arrested and tried. Tens of thousands of Muslims are in prison right now and in that section. Why is the Indian government not arresting this woman over a week after she has made slanderous and blasphemous remarks against Prophet Muhammad? So this is all a lie. The attempt of the Indian government to pretend that they have taken action is all nonsense. They have not taken any action. They are protecting that woman. They are protecting the BJP leadership. They are not going to act against them. Lastly, and very sadly, it is the state of the Indian judiciary, which I am so sorry to share with you, has in recent years completely been saffronized, saffron being the color of Hindu extremists. It has been completely saffronized. And there's a concept in Indian judiciary which says suo moto, SUOMOTO. Oftentimes, judges take notice of issues on the ground by themselves. Nobody needs to go to them. This is a classic case where an Indian judge should take suo moto notice and bring a court action, order criminal proceedings against the individuals who have committed this blasphemy. But the courts are also now completely compromised. So you don't hear a peep from the courts in India. That's how bad it is.
Thank you for that, Ajit. Hena, I want to go to you. All right, I want to go and talk about, if we can, how do the comments fit into the broader anti-Muslim attitudes that we're seeing and the tropes that the BJP has really pushed out?
So one of the things that that this really has brought forth is that nothing is sacred for Muslims, for Indian Muslims. Anything can be attacked, from their lives to their livelihoods, to their mosques, and to their prophet. But I think this spokesperson, who, by the way, is not a fringe element, that is what the BJP party is calling her, that this is a fringe element, that this is not someone who's part of, leadership. But these remarks attacking the prophet came from the spokesperson, of the national spokesperson of the ruling party. And they were made on the most watched television channel in India. Until she was asked, she's a 37-year-old lawyer, and she was a much sought after official BJP spokesperson. Yeah. And she comes on TV night after night, debating and representing the BJP. And she also defends the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. Right. Recently, she told a sympathetic interviewer on TV that the Prime Minister's office, the Home Minister's office, and the party's president's office was rallying behind her. So this was all after she made these comments. But the trouble for her began when, after her comments on that Jummah, that Friday, when a protest was held against her comments in the city of Kanpur, which is in Uttar Pradesh. And this protest turned violent. We hear that over 5,000 young people have been arrested. I'm getting updates. This is actually my father's home city. I'm getting updates from people saying that we don't know, or we believe our houses might be bulldozed, because that is what we have seen is when protests happen, when Muslims are attacked or their violence is perpetrated against them and they speak up, then the state-sponsored violence starts, and they bring in bulldozers to bulldoze Muslim homes and businesses. So this is something that we are seeing that translates, the violence translates into the streets. So I agree with Ajit that this is not new. This is just another version of what is happening. And something else that I wanted to also allude to was that the mosques that they were debating in when these comments were made, these are some of the mosques that we believe are in danger. There are over 3,000 mosques in India, which are current targets of Hindus, the Hindutva, claiming they are Hindu temples. You all saw what happened to the Babri Masjid. We believe mosques in Kashi and Mathura, and this mosque that they are debating, Yanpati, are also on that list. The same strain of Hindus also claim that the Taj Mahal is a Hindu temple, and that Muslims are already, by the way, prohibited from offering daily salah in the masjids located next to the Taj Mahal. They also claim, this is a claim being made on blogs and websites where these things are noted, that the Holy Kaaba in Mecca is a Hindu temple. And these attacks and claims are a part of an ongoing slow genocide of Indian Muslims. It includes attacks on Muslim women, lynching for eating meat, bulldozing, as I said, their homes and shops. And as a result, what we are seeing now is 60% or more Muslims are forced to live in ghettos, to Muslim neighborhoods, to save their lives. And the Indian government and police are wholly supportive of hundreds of militia in this slow genocide of Indian Muslims.
Thank you for that overview, Hena. And can you talk about, just briefly talk about the backlash that was given by Muslim countries and the change in the BJP's attitude? Can you talk about the significance of that?
Yes. So we saw Qatar lead the way with Kuwait, Iran, and other countries following suit. So currently there are about 20 Muslim countries that have made statements. Kuwait, Iran, and Qatar summoned the Indian ambassadors, and Saudi Arabia issued a very strong statement. Even the UAE, whose relationship with India has significantly improved in the past few years, they're great supporters and of each other, weapons exchanges and all of that, has criticized the comments. UAE's statement was perhaps the weakest of these countries. So what we're seeing is that when Muslim countries do stand up and here they stood up for the honor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for those viewers who don't understand what it means to insult the Prophet, you insulting the Prophet is worse than you insulting a Muslim's father, a mother, and then their own self. So there is bound to be a reaction. We've seen it all over the world. We've seen it in France. We've seen it in Indonesia, Malaysia. Hundreds and thousands of people will come out onto the streets when the honor of the Prophet is attacked. So this was dangerous territory, but I don't think this was unplanned. I do believe that this was a plan. These comments are planned because it brings Muslims out on the streets, and then the state has free range to go after them as these young men that have been arrested. What I do believe is that when Muslim countries do make strong stances such as these, then it's very powerful. It gives Muslims who are minorities around the world, it gives them backing. It makes them feel like, yes, they have the support of Muslim governments. when they're being persecuted in this manner. I also think that it also is a chance to show Muslim unity, in a global unity, and really for the human rights of other Muslims. We see Christian majority countries do this all the time. And it's about time that Muslim majority countries stand up for Muslims, especially who are in minority positions.
Thank you, Hena. That was a very thorough and detailed response, and we appreciate it. And I want to bring this back to Ajit. Ajit, just to transition, it's a different question here. You may not have the answer to it, but maybe attempt your best here. But what do you think these comments, we're seeing the rise of Hindutva networks here in the United States, and a recent report came out just at the ICNA convention recently. Can you talk about, what are the potential impacts and implications there, and what could potentially happen, the consequences of such rhetoric here with the Hindutva networks?
Well, I did talk about the existence of Hindutva organizations in the United States in my speech at the plenary at the ICNA convention at the end of May. There are a number of organizations in the United States that are very deeply connected and aligned with the Hindutva ideology and the Hindutva networks in India.
Right.
Primary organizations that echo the ideologies of Hindu nationalism in the United States are the Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America, which loosely translates as World Hindu Council of America. Then, of course, there is the Hindu American Foundation, which claims to be some sort of an advocacy organization. Hindu American Foundation has, in fact, last year filed a defamation lawsuit against 5 individuals, including one person from Indian American Muslim Council, 2 people from Hindus for Human Rights, 1 Christian, and 1 assistant professor at Rutgers University, Dr. Audrey Trushke. So, and they have been saying repeatedly on their Twitter and been arguing that Hinduism is Hindutva. If you attack Hindutva, you are attacking Hinduism, right? So these people were very clear in their minds. They are very, very strongly oriented towards expanding Hindu nationalist policies in America. Now, what are the Hindu nationalist policies? These people completely swear by the founders of Hindu nationalism, such as Savarkar, a man who apologized to the British and was in order to get out of prison, and then he was on a pension he received pension from the British. He was basically a traitor to the cause of Indian freedom. These Hindutva organizations in the United States, they are beholden to figures like Hedgewar, who was the founder of the RSS. Figures like Golwalkar, who was a successor to the Hedgewar, and Golwalkar very openly said that India should learn from Hitler. And what Hitler did to the Jews is what India should do to the Muslims. He had in so many words, he said this, and he wrote it. So these organizations, while on one hand, they claim to be the model migrant community in America, they use all the benefits of all the benefits that the United States offers them as equal citizens, as human beings, as equal human beings. They make use of all the facilities in America. They swear by, on one hand, the American ideals of pluralism, of justice, of liberty, of fraternity, but in truth, they're actually more close to the Ku Klux Klan, because they are championing extermination and genocide of Muslims in India, because that is what it amounts to. When they support laws such as Citizenship Amendment Act, when they support government initiatives such as the National Register for Citizens, what it basically means is that they are supporting the extermination and genocide of Muslims in India. That is why the people they support in America for higher office, for congressional office, all of them, they go after these people and demand that they support Hindu nationalism, the ideology of Hindu nationalism. They object to anytime anybody criticizes the Indian government or Modi or Hindu nationalism. They went after Pramila Jayapal. They went after Ro Khanna. They have gone after Andy Levin. They've gone after Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey. Anybody in Congress who speaks against Hindu nationalism, these people immediately stand up and say, "Oh, these guys are Hindu-phobic. Oh, they are commenting. They are targeting Hindus in America," which is complete nonsense. This is a real threat to America. The expansion of Hindu nationalism. These guys are no less a threat to America than any other ideology of the far right especially the white racist ideology, as well as Zionism. They are huge threats to America. And people need to understand, policymakers need to understand that unless Hindu nationalism is stopped in America, unless they are countered, unless they are exposed, there is a very real danger to pluralism, to the ideals of justice, fraternity, and liberty in the United States. And we cannot allow that to happen.
Thank you so much, Ajit. I think the question we always get from folks is, what can we do about this? How can we get involved? So I think I just want to close on this question with both of you all. If maybe, Hena, you can start maybe just talking about the work of Justice for All and how folks can get involved there. And then Ajit, I'll come to you after with the Indian American Muslim Council, and then we can close, inshallah. So Hena, please.
Thank you so much, Saifa. Justice for All is a human rights organization. We've been working for 25 years against the genocide of Muslims around the world, starting with Bosnia, the Rohingya in Burma. We have the Save Uyghur campaign that we run on what is happening to the Uyghur Muslims. And on India, this is something very personal to many of us because many of us are from Indian heritage. We have family there, we have relatives there, friends, neighbors. And so this is what is, and after working on several genocide, this one hits differently because I can understand the language.
Right.
And so when you hear over and over the hate speech that comes out, the Islamophobia that comes out, and you can understand the language, it just gets to you in a very different way.
Right.
But setting that aside, the Save India campaign is something that we invite everybody who's concerned about human rights and the religious freedom of the largest minority of Muslims in the world. India has over 250 million Muslims. This is a huge segment of humanity and a huge segment of the global Muslim population. Where will this go? I mean, there are active threats, right, of doing a Burma on them. This is what was brought up in the Hindu parliament that just took place in December, that killed 2 million so that the rest of the 250 million will run away. We invite people to join the movement. We need volunteers, translators, people to reach out to their congressional offices. There are many, many different ways that people can volunteer and be a part of this movement. We ask for people to really get involved in advocacy, especially locally, build coalitions locally, because a lot of our interfaith coalitions have been taken over by Hindu nationalists as well. And so when our friends at Hindus for Human Rights, people who do believe in pluralism and don't want their faith, their Hindu faith, to be hijacked by these extremists, try to find space in these forums, it becomes really, really tough. So we need Muslims across the country to be making space for our friends at Hindus for Human Rights in their interfaith councils and bringing them to the forefront so they can speak for real Hinduism and overshadow these Hindu nationalists. We also have several action alerts out. Even right now, we have an action alert coming out about thanking these Muslim governments who have taken a stance, calling up their embassies, emailing them, and asking them to, now that they've stood up for the honor of the Prophet ﷺ, now they need to stand up for the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, for the people who follow the Prophet, and help stop this genocide in India, because this is going to be a terribly if things get worse, and they are getting worse. The Holocaust Museum's early warning project says India is number 2 in mass atrocities, warning for mass atrocities, and mass atrocities are currently taking place in India. We do not want a destabilized South Asia. We want the countries in South Asia to be stable and to be stable allies for us. So that's our call to you.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And then Ajit, can you go next?
Yes. So we are also a 20-year-old organization founded by Muslims of Indian origin in the United States in 2002. Shortly after, there was mass violence against Muslims in Gujarat, in which 2,000 Muslims were massacred. This was no less than a genocide. It was a pogrom, very obviously openly carried out by the RSS and its elements, many of whom were actually tried and was sent to prison because of the persistence of the civil society. And this massacre happened when Narendra Modi, India's current prime minister, was the chief executive in that state of Gujarat. He completely had responsibility for this violence. There is enough evidence to convict him in any court, but of course the Indian courts have failed to bring him to the true justice. Now, the situation in India is far worse. We advocate for civil and political rights in India, for Muslims, for all people, actually, for Dalits, for secular-minded Hindus who are also in prison. One of the very important things that American Muslim organizations such as CAIR should focus on, in our humble view, is to pressure the US administration, especially the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, to designate India as a country of particular concern, as has been recommended by the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. In addition, the US government also needs to start sanctioning individuals such as Mr. Modi himself one more time. He was, remember, sanctioned by the US and could not enter the US for 9 years because his visa was denied from 2005 to 2014. Mr. Modi now needs to be sanctioned again by the Indian government, by the US government. So does Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister of India, whose hands are literally soaked in blood. There are people like the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. He needs to be sanctioned. There is a whole bunch of people in India, in politics, in police, in government, and indeed even in the Indian military for carrying out torture, for carrying out human rights violations against civilian populations across India, including in Kashmir, including in Northeast, in the state of Assam and other places. So I would say the immediate necessity for the American Muslim community and American Muslim organizations is to get involved quickly in a campaign to pressure the US government to designate India as a country of particular concern, and also to pressure the US government to start sanctioning officials, Indian officials and Indian agencies. In the long run, we need the US Congress to pass legislation condemning human rights violations and religious freedom violations in India, and ensuring that the US relationship with India is predicated on an observance of human rights and religious freedom. The United States Congress needs to hold more hearings on India, on what's going on in India. The US Congress, as I said, needs to pass resolution. The US Congress, members of Congress need to write letters to President Biden, to Modi, and to call out the violations there. In addition to that, what the American organizations, especially Muslim organizations, need to do is to, like Sister Hena said, to educate their own lawmakers. And to expose the Hindutva organizations in the US. These Hindutva organizations, as I said earlier, they position themselves as model citizens, as the model immigrant community, who are very nice people, good doctors, good engineers, which they are, but they are also, in their hearts, like I said, the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan wore the cape only at night. They came out, but in the daytime, they behaved as if they were routine, normal people. This is exactly the truth about Hindutva networks and their followers in the United States of America. And the Muslim organizations need to come together to expose this unholy, vile, vicious network of Hindutva supporters in the United States.
Thank you so much, Ajit, for that passionate response. And again, Hena and Ajit, I want to thank you all for joining CAIR on Air. And we look forward to hosting you all again in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. CAIR on Air runs every Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Until then, Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace.